Hello and welcome students to the 10th lecture of this course, which is named chemistry and belongs to the BTech first year syllabus. And the course code for this particular course is CH101 for out semester and CH201 for even semester. This is G. Chakraborty, assistant professor and teacher in charge of Department of Chemistry, and you are watching the 10th lecture of this course, which is called chemistry. Now, as the lecture is number 10, you have already understood that this belongs to the second module, that is physical chemistry. And in the last lecture, we people have seen a new chapter, a new type of chapter rather, which is named use of free energy in chemical equilibria, right? Now, you might be knowing that this particular chapter is unique in its kind because it contains the combination of both thermodynamics as well as electrochemistry, right? Which is very unique in its kind. And in the last lecture, we people have seen thermodynamics, right? Now, in thermodynamics, what we people have seen, we have seen what the basics of thermodynamics are, what is the meaning of thermodynamics, what is thermodynamic system, what is surrounding, what is universe, what are the types of system, and we have seen that everything that is under investigation or study is called system, and anything that is other than the system present in the universe which is surrounding. Also, we have noted that this universe is not the celestial universe that contains the solar system or the Milky Way galaxy. No, this is a different thing. And in system, people have seen that there are three types of systems. One is open, another is closed. Third one is isolated, right? Open means both energy and as well as mass can be exchanged. Closed means only energy can be exchanged, mass is restricted. And isolated means neither energy nor mass can be exchanged, right? Now, this system and surrounding, if they're separated, then there must be a boundary. Now, we have also seen that this boundary can be of two types. One boundary allows heat to pass through it, but does not allow mass, definitely, because it is a boundary. That type of boundary is called diathermal wall, whereas the other type of boundary which neither allows heat nor mass, which is called adiabatic wall. Okay, this was the basic. After that, we have seen thermodynamic processes, right? We have seen isocodic process at constant volume. We have seen isobaric process at constant pressure. We have seen isothermal process at constant temperature. We have seen adiabatic process at no heat change. We have seen isoenthalpic process having constant enthalpy. And we have seen cyclic process. We have seen reversible as well as irreversible processes, right? Now, after that, we people have seen what are thermodynamic properties. So we have come across extensive and intensive properties. That is, extensive properties are those which are dependent on mass of an object, and intensive property are independent of mass of an object. And we have used water and its temperature and its volume to discuss this particular topic. Okay, so these were some of the details of the things that we people have seen in the previous lecture. Also, we have seen, I missed one thing, that is thermodynamic functions. So we have seen state function and path function also. Now we will come across this lecture and we'll see what this lecture contains. So hello and welcome again. This is the use of free energy in chemical equilibrium part 2, and in this lecture we people are having enthalpy, exothermic reactions, endothermic reactions, and heat capacity, relation between Cp and CVFI gas. Okay, now as we are doing enthalpy, there is one more thing that we have completed in the last lecture, that is first law of thermodynamics. Okay, so first law of thermodynamics also we have done in our last lecture, and along with that we have done internal energy, because the first law is nothing but a law of internal energy. Okay, now as we know that first law of thermodynamics is quite simple, just like the law of conservation of energy. And first law is called the law of internal energy because its expression is nothing but delta U equals to Q plus W. Now in this lecture, you are seeing that we will do enthalpy, and this enthalpy is nothing but an application of first law of thermodynamics. Okay, so let us move to the next slide and see what we are having. Okay, so our first topic comes right here, which is nothing but enthalpy. Now, as you people can see, you have listened to this word enthalpy previously also, and you might be thinking, what is enthalpy? What is enthalpy? What is the relation between enthalpy and something else, right? Now, in your class 11, if you remember, people initially said that enthalpy, okay, it is just like energy, right? So ionization enthalpy became ionization energy, electron gain enthalpy became electron gain energy. So but there is a fine gap between enthalpy and energy. Okay, enthalpy is the heat content of a system. That is, it corresponds only to the heat energy that is present in a system and not any other form of energy. Okay, but if you say energy, it means all types of energies, right? This is a basic difference. I think you may be knowing, you may not be knowing. Okay, now mathematical definition is like this: the sum of internal energy of a system and the product of pressure of a gas in a system and its volume is termed as enthalpy. It is denoted by H. In some books you will see it is denoted by U. Okay, now we actually do not use not U, sorry, I'm wrong. In some books you will see that enthalpy is denoted by E. Okay, but we generally do not use E. Why? Because if we use E, then what will happen? We'll have a confusion between enthalpy and energy. Okay, so in order to avoid that, we don't use E, we use H. Okay, so mathematically, if we read the definition again, sum of internal energy is U, product of pressure and volume. So if product of pressure is P, volume is V, right? So our equation becomes H is equal to U plus PV. This is the expression for enthalpy. Okay, now characteristics we'll do later on. Just try to see, if we see what is change in enthalpy, how we can get change in enthalpy. We know H is equal to U plus PV. So let us have some term for change. D is the term, dH equals to du plus dPV. Now dPV, whenever it is just like this, dH will be equal to du plus d, within bracket will be having P as well as V. Now whenever this type of thing comes, then what happens? One is taken constant, another is derivated. So first P is taken constant, V is derivated, then V is taken constant, P is derivated. So what we are having? We are having dH is equal to du plus PdV plus VdP. Now again, du is equal to CV dt. Also at constant pressure, dP, this particular dP, this becomes 0. So what will happen? This particular term will be neglected. What we will be having? We will be having dH equals to du plus PdV. But if we just incorporate du equals to CV dt, then we will be having dH equals to CV dt plus PdV. Okay, so this is our desirable expression that we are having, right? Now let us come to the characteristics. What we are having, enthalpy is a state function and it is an intensive property of the system. Okay, so characteristics are quite easy, but the thing is, important thing is enthalpy and change in enthalpy. So I hope that you people have understood. I have tried to make you understood. If you have any problem, just contact me. Okay, again we have mathematical expression for change in enthalpy for ideal gas. Okay, so dH is equal to du plus PdV. We are starting from here only. Again delta H equals to delta U plus del nRT. Why? Just try to remember, PdV is equal to del nRT, PV equals to nRT, right? From there it is coming. PdV equals to delta nRT, or you can say P delta V is equal to delta nRT, right? Rather, here N is change in number of moles of ideal gas. Okay, and SI unit of enthalpy is nothing but joule, right? So multiple things we have seen in this particular slide regarding enthalpy. Let us go to the next slide. So what we are having? Exothermic reactions, big thing. So exothermic reactions, endothermic reactions have come up, and exothermic reaction, I guess the name is known to you from your very childhood. Difference between the sum of enthalpies of products and the sum of enthalpies of reactants is known as enthalpy of reaction. Okay, enthalpy of reaction means how much enthalpy does the products are having and how much enthalpy the reactants are having. Product minus reactant, if we subtract the enthalpy, we'll get enthalpy of reaction. Okay, now this can be written mathematically as delta H, that is change in enthalpy, is equal to sum of enthalpy of products, sum of enthalpy of reactants, right? In the above reaction, N and M are coefficients of the products and reactants respectively. So this will be M. Okay, right? Now let us come to our main topic, that is exothermic reaction. Okay, now what is exothermic reaction? An exothermic reaction is a reaction in which energy is released. This is one of the most important points, and in the form of heat or light. Yes, thus in exothermic reaction, energy is transferred to the surroundings rather than taking energy from the surroundings. So you are being noble, you are just giving out energy, and if you give out energy, the process will be exothermic reaction. Okay, and delta H will be negative. Why delta H will be negative? We will see using this particular diagram, right? So let us come to the diagram. This is nothing but the reactants and this is nothing but the products, right? Now let us imagine here the energy of reactant was 100. Okay, now here if we see this particular line, here the energy of products is 20. We are just assuming. Okay, so whenever we are doing product minus reactant, we are getting 20 minus 100. So what we are getting? Minus 80. This minus 80 means delta H will be negative, right? Whatever statement we are having, it is verified. Okay, now here basically what happens, there are too much drawings. So basically here what happens, the reactant will go to the product via something. That something is nothing but the activation energy. Okay, so this particular area, it will go up and then it will go down. So what we can see, previously it was having energy 100 as per our observation that we have taken, and after becoming product it is having energy 20. So 80 joule of energy is given out or released towards the surrounding, right? As simple as that. Okay, so let us see the examples of exothermic reactions. A simple example is combustion, such as lighting a candle, and input of energy causes oxygen and wax to react and produce carbon dioxide, water and heat. Now tell me, whenever you have burnt a candle, have you ever thought of the fact that what type of reaction is happening here? The reaction is quite simple. Oxygen reacts with wax and produces carbon dioxide, water and heat. Okay, so heat we can see, carbon dioxide we can see, but the water I think we people cannot see because it evaporates. But next time whenever you are lighting a candle, keep it in your mind that what reaction is happening whenever I am burning this. Okay, चलो, so चलते हैं अगले पेज के अंदर. Right. So our next process is endothermic reaction. ये तो होना ही था. If the previous was exothermic, then this must be in endothermic, right? This is quite simple. So what endothermic reactions are? Let us try to understand. Endothermic reactions are chemical reactions in which the reactants absorb energy from the surrounding to form products. Reactants absorb energy from the surrounding to form products. What does it mean? It means energy of the reactants will be low and energy of the products will be high. We are using the same value, same numerals, 20 joule and 100 joule. Now in the previous one what happened, we started from 100 joule, ended up in 20 joule, so 80 joule was released to the surrounding. But here what is happening, we are starting from 20 joule and we are consuming energy, finally we arrive at 100 joule, then the product was obtained. Okay, so we can say that in this particular type of reaction the enthalpy change will be positive because product is having more energy than the reactants and energy will be absorbed. These reactions lower the temperature of surrounding area. It is quite simple. They create a cooling effect. Why cooling effect? If the system absorbs the energy, automatically surrounding will be cool, surrounding will be having lower temperature. Physical processes can be endothermic as well. Ice cube absorb heat energy from the surrounding, melt to form liquid, right? No chemical bonds are broken or formed, but in this particular process, ice cube melting of ice, what happens? Endothermic reaction occurs and the energy is taken from the surrounding. Okay, so the local area will be cooled down, right? This was the discussion of endothermic reaction. Now, there was one very important topic that I was trying to discuss but I forgot, so I'll just get it and I'll discuss it with you. Okay, not forgotten actually. The case is between endothermic and exothermic reaction, which one will yield a better stable product. This was the point. Let us just clear the drawings and just try to understand that suppose we are having endothermic process and exothermic process. Now if we try to examine that in which process the product will be more stabilized, what will be our answer? In which process between endothermic and exothermic, in which process the products will be more stabilized? Answer will be exo or endo? Which process? Answer is exothermic reactions. Okay. See why? What the reason behind it is? It's quite simple. In endothermic reaction, product is having more energy. In exothermic reaction, product is having less energy. As we know, if energy is less, stability is more, right? So if the products are having less energy in terms of the exothermic reactions, then definitely exothermic reactions will lead to more stable products compared to the endothermic reactions. Okay, as simple as that, right? Let us go to the endothermic process examples. When ammonium chloride NH4Cl is dissolved in water, endothermic reaction occurs. Salt dissociates into ammonium and chloride ions. Now, I don't know whether you people have done this experiment or not in your real life, but I have done it multiple times. Believe me, if you take a beaker, if you take some water, and if you add ammonium chloride in that particular beaker, you will feel the beaker becoming like ice. Okay, it is so cooled, so cooled. Why it is cooled? You have not added ice, you have not started AC, you have not used any fan. Why it become cold? Because of the endothermic reaction that occurs during the dissolution of ammonium chloride. Okay, what happens from the beaker, from the surrounding, the heat is being taken off by the system, and due to which the surrounding becomes cold. Okay, now you will see exact opposite phenomena if you do the same with NaOH. If you just add some water in a beaker and if you add few pellets of NaOH, gradually if you stir the solution, you will see the beaker will become warm. Now, why the beaker become warm? Because formation of NaOH solution, right, or the process of dissolution of NaOH is exothermic, due to which the system releases heat to the surroundings, making the beaker warm, whereas in case of NH4Cl, the reverse occurs. The system absorbs heat from the surrounding, making it cool, okay, or cold, right? So here one numbering problem has come up. If this is 1, then this will be 2, this will be 3, this will be 4, and finally this will be 5. Okay, not a big deal. The melting of ice to form water is an example we have already discussed. Evaporation of liquid water to form vapor will definitely be an example. Sublimation of solid CO2 and baking of bread are some other examples that we people can see as part of endothermic reactions. Okay, so this was all about the endo and exothermic reactions. Let us go to the next slide, and you can see it is a wonderful slide where we are having pictures of both endothermic and exothermic reactions. So this one is exothermic, this one is endothermic. In endothermic, what happens? Reaction in endothermic reaction, heat is absorbed from surrounding. So you can see the arrows are towards the ice cube, so heat is getting absorbed from the surrounding and the ice cube is melting, as we people can see. Sum of enthalpy of product is greater than sum of enthalpy of reactant. Yes, the product will have more energy. We have confirmed this by seeing the graph that we people have seen in the last slide. Okay, and this is nothing but this particular expression, heat of reaction delta H will be positive. This also is in complete relation with the second point, and we have seen using the graph, okay, in the previous page. Now here comes the point that I discussed. I was forgetting, but I have discussed that products are less stable than the reactants. Yes, definitely the products will be less stable because the reactants are having less energy, products are having more energy. And as we know that in the environment, the lower energy things are getting stabilized, or lower energy things are always stable. So definitely the products will be less stable than that of the reactants, because products are having more energy than that of the reactants. Okay, and this is one example, that is formation of CO2, right? So this was all about the endothermic reaction. Let us now move into the exothermic reaction. As we people can see, in exothermic reaction, heat is given out to the surrounding. Yes, we have seen, and the arrows also imply that this heat is getting out to the surroundings. Sum of enthalpy of product is less than that of reactant. Yes, we have verified this using the graph. Heat of reaction is negative. Definitely, if the products are having less energy, then product minus reactant will be negative. No issue about that. Products are more stable than reactant. Yes, I have discussed few minutes ago that if the products are having less energy than the reactants, then the products will be more stabilized. And this is an example of a particular reaction, that is N2 plus O2 gives us NO, right? So in this particular slide, wonderfully using pictures and difference has been explained beautifully, right? Let us see what's next. Okay. Now here comes, I guess, the last topic of this particular lecture, that is heat capacity. Now we have to see what is heat capacity and what are the relations regarding heat capacity. Okay, so heat capacity is nothing but the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius, can be 1 Kelvin also, right? Because there is directly no difference between Celsius and Kelvin scale. If one difference occurs in Celsius scale, one difference will be occurring in Kelvin scale also, right? So this is the definition of heat capacity, that is amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a substance by 1 degree Celsius, and this is the corresponding expression dq by dt. dq is change in heat, dt is change in temperature, right? Done. So it is the following types. We can see there are 4 types, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let us go to the first one, specific heat capacity. Now whenever we are getting this word specific, what does it mean? It means there is something we need to do with mass. Specific means mass is related. Specific gravity, gravity divided by mass. Specific volume, volume divided by mass. Specific student, student divided by mass. Okay. Specific teacher, teacher divided by mass. So here we have specific heat capacity, that means heat capacity divided by mass, but that is not the definition. That is the formula. The definition is, it is defined as the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 gram. See, 1 gram implies that we are dealing with mass of a substance by 1 degree. So 1 gram by 1 degree, right? That is specific heat capacity. Now whenever we are moving to molar heat capacity, this 1 gram will become 1 mole, otherwise the definition is same. Amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 mole of substance by 1 degree. So as you can see, this specific heat capacity and molar heat capacity are having only single difference of the fact that specific heat capacity deals with gram of the substance used and molar heat capacity deals with mole of the substance used. Okay. Now heat capacity at constant volume and heat capacity of constant pressure. This is where does my mouse pen have gone? I'm unable to see it. Right now I find it out. Heat capacity at constant pressure, heat capacity at constant volume. So it is quite same thing. Just the pressure and volume are constant in either cases. Amount of heat required to raise the temperature of substance by 1 degree at constant pressure, and same thing at constant volume. Okay. Now let us have a look at these two expressions. We can see Cv is equal to dq dt by V and Cp is equal to dq dt at constant pressure. So you can see the same thing at constant volume and constant pressure gives us this particular expression, which is called Cp and Cv, right? Now I guess this is the last slide for this particular lecture, and here we need to know about the relationship between Cp and Cv, and after this I'll come up with one question to you people, that which one is greater, Cp or Cv, right? That you need to tell me that which one is greater, Cp or Cv, right? So let us see what the derivation says. That is from the equation Q equals to Nc delta T. I think you people might be thinking that from where this particular equation has come up. So for your knowledge, I can tell you this particular equation has been discussed in the first slide only, right? Whenever we have discussed about enthalpy, okay, right? And internal energy also, from that this particular equation has come up. Now at constant pressure, what we need to write? Q is becoming Qp, C is becoming Cp. So Qp is equal to Ncp delta T. Value is equal to delta H. I told you people that this has come up from enthalpy. Okay. So pressure, whenever we are having anything that has to deal with pressure, then what happens? Always remember that has something to do with constant pressure, right? That has something to do with enthalpy change. And whenever we are dealing with something which has constant volume, that has something to do with volume change. Okay. Sorry, internal energy change, right? So this is our equation number, let us say 1, and at constant volume we have Qv is equal to Ncv delta T, which is nothing but equal to delta U. So this is our equation number 2. Okay. Now what we are having for n mole of a gas, we know del H equals to del U plus P delta V. This also we have seen in the first slide of this particular lecture. So PV is equal to RT. For 1 mole of gas, PV is equal to actually PV is equal to nRT. For 1 mole of gas, N will be 1, so PV will be equal to RT. So delta U is equal to delta RT, that is delta U is plus R delta T. Why R delta T? Because R is nothing but universal gas constant, and a constant cannot be derivated. Okay, so del H equals to del U plus del RT. This is our equation number 3. Now if we take the values of delta H and delta U from equation number 1 and 2, and if we incorporate the same in equation number 3, what we are having in place of delta H, we will write this particular thing, CV delta T. Again, N we are not writing. Why? Because this particular N becomes 1. We are doing it for 1 mole. Okay, so Cp delta T for delta H and Cv delta T for delta U plus R delta T. Let us take delta T in common. So this will cut down, this will cut down, this will cut down. What we are having? We are having Cp is equal to Cv plus R. What does that mean? Say 10 is equal to 5 plus 5. That means 10 is greater, so Cp will be greater than Cv, right? So this type of question comes like this also, that prove that Cp is greater than Cv. Why Cp is greater than Cv? Okay, so Cp minus Cv is equal to what? That is what also what we can write. And there is another way that we can write, that is Cp minus Cv is equal to Nr. Why this is important? Because this is giving us the expression for N mole. It may happen that whatever thing you are dealing with is not with 1 mole, it may be with 0.5 mole or 2 mole or 2.5 mole, right? So we need to know the expression for N mole also. Okay, so this was all about the relation between Cp and Cv. Now let me check whether this is the last slide or not. Yes, this is the last slide, and let us discuss that what people have seen in this particular lecture. So in this lecture we have come across the first point, that is enthalpy, and we have seen that enthalpy is nothing but the application of first law of thermodynamics. Okay, and we have seen the expressions of change in enthalpy and the derivative expressions also. After that we have seen applications of enthalpy change, that is exothermic and endothermic reaction. So we have done beautifully this particular topic, and we have seen that in exothermic reaction energy is released, in endothermic energy is absorbed. So in exothermic delta H will be negative, whereas in endothermic delta H will be positive. Also we have seen that the products in case of exothermic reactions are much more stable compared to that of the products in case of endothermic reactions. Okay, that also we people have seen. Now after that we have seen what is heat capacity. We have seen that heat capacity is the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of a substance by 1 degree, maybe Celsius or Kelvin, right? And this particular topic, there is heat capacity. It is of 4 types. One is Cp, another is Cv, and Cs and Cm. Cs and Cm are nothing but specific heat capacity and molar heat capacity. And Cp and Cv are nothing but heat capacity at constant volume and constant pressure. Okay, and now in this particular slide, as people can see, we have clearly explained that what is the relation between Cp and Cv, and we have come up with the conclusion that Cp minus Cv is equal to R, or Cp minus Cv is equal to Nr for N moles, right? This one is for 1 mole, and Cp is greater than Cv. Okay, so these things we have seen in this particular lecture, right? So thank you so much for today. You will see again in the next lecture, that is the third part of use of free energy in chemical equilibrium, and that part also contains from thermodynamics. So till then, you just see what type of relations are there, try to understand them. In case of any problem, contact me. Okay, so till then, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.